Welcome to the MTSS Needs Assessment Protocol training. This training was designed with you, the MTSS Engagement Resource Teacher, in mind. It is to help you as you familiarize yourself with the needs assessment and HYP selection process. The purpose of this training is to walk you through how to utilize the protocol resource located in our shared drive. We will explain the protocol for selecting and administering the HYP needs assessment when meeting with schools to determine which toolkit or high-yield practice they will select to utilize school-wide. So, where can you locate the protocol? You will begin by opening our MTSS Engagement Google Shared Drive. From there, you will click on MTSS Toolkits, then Trainings and Resources, and finally click on the Overview Needs Assessment Success Criteria HYP menu folder. Inside this folder, you will have access to the protocol for selecting and administering high-yield practices needs assessment. We have also provided a direct link to this resource. Also in this folder, you have access to other tools that you will utilize during the process, such as the High Yields Needs Assessment and the Toolkit Overview. Let's go ahead and dive into the protocol. Before we go through each step, we want to ensure that you understand not only the purpose of the needs assessment, but also who uses it and when it is utilized. As you see, this tool is for you, the MTSS Engagement Resource Teacher, to use when meeting with the school principal and possibly the school administration team, ILT, and or the ASC may be present. The purpose of the needs assessment is to analyze the school's current practices and ultimately identify which toolkit or high-yield practice they will select to utilize school-wide. No more than one high-yield practice should be selected at a time, and no more than 2 high-yield practices per school year. If a school would like to select more than 2 HYPs, please consult with Dr. Brahim. First, you will want to discuss which toolkit and or high-yield practice they are currently implementing, if any. Some schools may have selected toolkits and or HYPs based on the disproportionality data and work from the 2019-2020 school year.
Your next step would be to provide the toolkit overview, which we have linked here for you, but it is also located within the folder we took you to earlier. The school needs to select one toolkit focus after looking over this overview to determine which HYP would best meet their school needs. We need to be sure to explain that this does not mean they are committed to all of the HYPs in that toolkit. It is simply to help narrow down the list of choices. You will use the toolkit overview to discuss the toolkits in order to narrow the focus to eventually one high-yield practice. Remember, schools can choose up to 2 high-yield practices for the year or 1 each semester. The overview includes just that, an overview of the MTSS toolkits and purpose of our MTSS engagement team, as well as a breakdown of the toolkit descriptions, which includes a list of the high-yield practices within the toolkit and a definition and description of the toolkit focus. Now that your school has selected a toolkit for their focus, you are ready to administer the actual needs assessment to determine which high-yield practice would be best for the implementation. Again, we have linked the needs assessment for you on this slide, but you can also access this by navigating to the folder we showed you earlier. The needs assessment includes questions from each toolkit to help determine where the need is. Each question is meant to be reflected upon and assists in identifying which high-yield practice is best for their school at the current moment. As you will notice, the high-yield practices are bolded, and each question was pulled directly from the individual success criteria. Based on the questions and reflection, determine the high-yield practice that will be the focus. In the first box under the planning questions, there is a designated spot to list the HYP. The school can choose to select an additional high-yield practice at a later time if desired. Continue with the remaining planning questions. You will then have the school assign a point of contact for this work. You will discuss and determine how the teachers will be trained in the chosen HYP. Explain that in order to build capacity at each school, we will implement a TLT training of trainers model. You will train one person or IL team at the school, and they will deliver the training to the staff. This could be in a whole school faculty meeting, within PLC groups, or some other setting. You will discuss how the school will continue to support in implementing the HYP following the training. Be sure to explain how these high yield practices have high effect sizes, but in order to achieve the results, they take time, practice, reflection, and continuous adaptations. One training will not reach the expected results. Then you will see there is a space for you to list the name of the TLT point of contact and the date you will administer the training of trainers. Finally, you will need to identify the selected date or dates the trainer will provide the training to the staff. This is for you to note so that you can follow up with the point of contact. The final step involves the HYP menu, which you will share with the leadership in order to provide all needed information for the selected toolkit or high yield practice. This is like a one-stop shop for each HYP. You want to be sure to point out how the toolkit numbers across the top of the chart link to the following information: a link to the toolkit PDF, a definition and description of the toolkit focus, success criteria for each high yield practice within that toolkit, and a table showing the contents of each toolkit. And that's all, folks. Once you have completed this, the true work and partnership begins with your schools. We hope you found this tutorial helpful. Remember, we are a team. Be sure to reach out to a seasoned team member for any questions, or if you would like to shadow someone during this process before doing one on your own.